Toronto's pre-construction condo market is in shambles right now. I believe down 91% sales volume year over year. Don't hold me to that. I read that a few months ago. And here in the first slide, I've pulled a excerpt out of Prime Properties YouTube video, and he's done the math basically stating that there's $15 billion in losses coming for the pre-construction condo market in Toronto. And the way that he's arrived at that is basically the average sale price of these pre-construction units, and then what they're currently selling for, and then how many of them are completing. And then he's arrived at over $15 billion in potential losses coming to the pre-construction market in Toronto. Now, I have no idea what's going to happen with this situation. A lot of people aren't even going to be able to complete on these units because obviously if you paid $1,300 a square foot and the current price is $1,000, it's going to be very difficult to get an appraisal to come out more than 30% above what you paid for this unit. And if the appraisal comes in low, then you have to bring extra cash to close, which most people aren't going to have. And therefore, you're likely forfeiting your deposit and probably getting sued by the developer in that situation. Now, for the people who can complete, actually can get a mortgage and close on these units, well, you can bet that they're going to be cash flow negative. I'm going to guess at least $1,500 a month, but could be as high as $2,000, $2,500 a month, depending on what they purchased. And for all of those people, they're depleting their savings to be able to close on this. And then, they're out of pocket an extra $1,500, $2,000 a month in negative cash flow. That is money that could have went towards consumption. So this will likely be an even bigger drawdown on the overall economy. Now, this is a ridiculous statistic courtesy of Jordan Skrinko in Toronto. Basically, there was more new home sales in Toronto in just November of 2021 than there was in all of 2024. Look at how pitiful this is. 44 new home sales, pre-construction sales in all of 2024 in comparison to 30,000 in 2021. So 30,000, that's a lot of pre-constructions coming up for completion soon. Now, I found an article that actually verified this, that basically states Greater Toronto, December 2021, the GTA new home market saw very strong sales in November, the highest for this month in more than 2 decades. The building industry and land development, blah, blah, blah. Total November new home sales of 5,000 were 29% above the 10-year average. So 5,000 new home sales in just November of 2021 in comparison to 4,400 in all of 2024. If that is not a sign of a shit market, then I don't know what would be. Now, what is the result of 44 new home sales in the entire year when there was 30,000 in 2021? Well, I think this chart here, which is the scheduled condo completions for the GTA, tells the story pretty well. So obviously next year in Toronto, the pre-construction market is going to be a complete mess. You can see we are hitting basically all-time highs for condo completions in 2025. Why is that? Well, that's because you had all-time highs of sales back in 2021 and 2022. So condos typically take, depending on what it is, 2 to 5 years to build. 2 years if it's like a one-off low-rise apartment building. And then if it's a high-rise, it could be 3 to sometimes 6 years, depending on the project. Well, you're going to have a bulk of those completions happening in 2025 from the sales that happened in 2021. So 2025 is going to be a very interesting year for Toronto with all of the completions coming up, because you've been hearing about all the headlines all year about all of the pain that's been happening in the pre-construction market. Well, in 2025, we have an extra, like 15,000 home completions in 2025 in a market that could potentially be worse. Like I think the prices are lower in Toronto. At the very least, interest rates are lower than they were in 2024. But if I had to guess, I'm going to say the situation is going to get probably quite a bit worse before it gets better in Toronto, just because the prices haven't gotten better. But here's the thing, right? As we get into 2027, so the next 2 years look painful. There's more housing completions in 2026. There's a lot in 2025. As we get into 2027, because no new homes have been selling basically for the last 2 years, we also have no new completions for 2027, 2028, and probably nothing in 2029. And the reason why this happens is basically developers need to, as you guys probably know, they need to sell anywhere from 50 to 70% of their product within a certain time frame to actually secure financing and be able to build out the project. So This is typically why when you're buying a pre-sale condo or pre-construction condo, whatever you want to call it, you usually want to buy at the very beginning because the developer is motivated to get sales rolling. So once they get some sales, it's easier to get more sales because it's like, well, if this guy, it's the Jones effect. Hey, if this guy bought a pre-sale, then, it's probably a good time to buy, right? If people are buying, then you should buy, right? That's the Jones effect. If this guy did it, then you should do it. So in the very beginning, the developer is motivated to get sales going. They usually have really good incentives. That's the lowest prices they're going to offer. But also if a developer is, say, 50% sold out and they need to hit 60%, and they're getting towards the end of whatever time frame that is, let's say they're 10 months into the project and they have 12 months to hit 60% sales and they're only at 50. Well, a developer will typically offer some pretty good incentives just to get that last 10% over the finish line, because once they hit 60%, they can start building. They can raise the prices of the remaining units and just sit on it, and they don't care how slow these units sell because they have 3 or 4 years until the project is finished anyways. So I actually just saw this happen in a project. I won't say what it is, but studio apartments in this market were selling around 400,000, and they sold a bunch of them at 350,000, 10% deposit, 2028 completion. That was an amazing deal. People were wondering, well, why is it an amazing deal? If I had to speculate, I would say that this developer was probably very close to hitting their sales targets, and they just wanted to get that over the finish line before that time frame that the lender gave them had elapsed. So although it looks like there's going to be a lot of pain in the Toronto condo market come 2025, 2026, it could be very short-lived, because as we get into 2027, 2028, you're going to have, maybe even in 2026, you're probably going to have a lot lower interest rates in this time frame. But as you get into 27, 2028, there's a very good chance you're going to have lower interest rates, as well as another supply crisis with absolutely nothing getting built. And keep in mind, these are scheduled housing completions, so these don't have to happen. There's a good enough chance that maybe some of these developers go insolvent, or maybe these are projects that have launched but haven't hit sales targets yet. Like if they don't hit that 50, 60%, well, then they can't launch those projects. So although 2027 has this scheduled, you may end up seeing a scenario where it's like, this many end up actually completing in 2027. So as we get into 27, 28, it looks like we're going to have somewhat of a housing supply crisis. Now, people are saying, oh yeah, well, all the immigrants and everything are leaving now and immigration targets are lower. And to be honest, I don't really have an opinion on that. I don't know what's going to happen. I find it very hard to believe that they're just going to have negative immigration for the next couple years. I think we're going to still be net positive because our economy, the overall system, needs new people to be able to sustain it. So I don't see that as being realistic, but I could be wrong. Now, if you're in my market of the Fraser Valley, there are a lot of pre-sale projects or pre-construction projects that I wouldn't touch with a 200-foot pole. But for the ones that I would touch, I've made a web page here where I basically outline all of the projects that I currently like in the market. You go to thatagentkelly.com/pre-sales. Now, why would you even consider buying a pre-construction condo right now, given the fact that everything that's happening in Toronto? Well, all of the conditions that existed to get all of these people in hot water in Toronto are not the conditions that currently exist right now. Interest rates can't go up 5% from where they're at right now. They're already up 5%. Prices are already down 10, 20, 25%. Interest rates seem to be on a trajectory that is going down. And then your pre-construction condo is completing into a time frame where there isn't very much competing new inventory completing alongside the condo that you purchased. So if you are interested in potentially talking about one of these, go to my website, you put in your information, you'll get the information for that project sent out to you immediately. Other than that, appreciate you guys. Subscribe to the channel. I'm That Agent Kelly, and I'm making moves to move you. Peace.